Just,
Goes all past.
this is the real one.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, we want to make of this whole time together a practice of being present, knowing where we are and being where we are. And we understand it's got its own challenges logging in to Zoom and being online and staying present, connecting in this way. We don't have the extra benefit of this exchange of in-person energy, right? And yet there's still an exchange of energy. There's still an exchange of consciousness. For instance, okay, you see, we're pretty passionate about Gnosis. You know, that tends to come through. We hear that reflected. But, you know, imagine if I was just teaching like this the whole time. You would want to cry and not good tears, right? And so there's still an exchange of energy happening here. And so if I just brought this, that'd be horrible for all of you. So and you bring your presence too. And so we make of this what we make of this together, for sure. And so your presence does totally impact what's happening here. And so for ourselves, but also for each other, let's make of this a practice throughout. And I mean, we can take that to the rest of life as well. That our whole day is what we make it through our presence, through how we interact, through how we receive impressions and what we do with them in our consciousness, hopefully. And so let's, you know, for many of us, it's morning, and this is a great start to the rest of a day, a start with a practice that right now is a practice of being present while listening and noticing how we're taking things in and where it's going within us, and let it inspire you and let it raise questions, and maybe have a little notepad nearby where you can jot down your questions so that your brain doesn't have to like try to hold too much at once, and just have a question, write it down. There'll be a pause later for questions, let it go, and keep presencing ourselves.
Have an inspiration.
Write it down.
Definitely want to write those down, because a lot of times we think, oh yeah, there's no way I'm forgetting that.
Right. Yes, we have our own quotables. So like last month and many other meetings we've had, we begin with this inspiration from the Gnostic master Samael and Vior about Gnostic psychology. So that's fundamentally, we're talking about Gnostic psychology and esotericism and ontology, the science of the being. And Gnostic, he says, Gnostic psychology differs fundamentally from conventional psychology because it approaches the human psyche from the point of origin, the essence, the Buddhata, as it's called in Buddhism, or consciousness, which is the seed of the soul. Divine intelligent principles which belong neither to time nor to the mind. And so we're beginning again with that very same quote, because that's the beginning point. And it's always the beginning point of any Gnostic meeting, class, meditation, is to make connection with ourselves as an essence, as that seed of the soul, as our true nature. Because she is who brought you here. And that essence that you truly are, that seed of soul, that spark of divinity, is who is here in you. That is what we truly are. And that's what brings us together for study and practices such as this. And so all the rest of you that got you here, the breakfast you had, the clothes you put on, you know, all that it took, you did it all for that essence. Because she needs you to do all that stuff to get her here so that she can grow and develop and then infuse all of you that brought you here with her intelligence, with her freedom, with her light, with her consciousness. So you do all the stuff it takes to get her here, and she gives back to you 1,000-fold. And that's what we're doing every time. So that's always the starting point, because there's so much power in connecting with the essence, and not power as in taking over, but power as in consciousness, empowerment as a soul is that power. So to remember, that's always the point, to begin, the beginning point, to begin with the essence in Gnosis. And along these lines, as Lao Tzu says, that every human being's essential nature is perfect and faultless. But after years of immersion in the world, we easily forget our roots and take on a counterfeit nature. And that's why there's that effort of non-effort. It's like, why is it effort to just be? I mean, it's be, 2 letters, be. Sounds very simple, like, all you need to do is just be present. Okay, got it. That should be really easy. And yet we notice that there's a certain effort from the inside that it takes, and a continual returning back and returning back and returning back. There's that tendency to go away in the mind, in the emotions. The body wants things. There's that tendency to go away because we've forgotten our roots and we took on a counterfeit nature. We talked a bit more about that last time. And so we're here to recapture that authentic nature, to be in touch with that authentic nature, and to keep returning to it and keep returning to it. So in Gnosis, we don't tire of repeating ourselves. And I mean, it's amazing and wonderful that some of you are here again and again and again for basically the same topics. But like we said last month, I mean, so are we, over and over again. And we really don't tire of it. And we've joked with ourselves and each other, it's because like we need a lot of help, but
all of those things that it took to bring you here, we had to use all those things so that we
right,
come here too.
Exactly.
We didn't just schedule this for everyone. So we're like, oh, right. We better show up. We have to show up.
That's right. To be reminded, and to dwell in this, because we've always really loved having the weekend morning, like the Saturday morning Gnosis classes, which we've had for many, many years. And because it's so wonderful to begin the day with that inspiration and that information of Gnosis, that inspiring information that Gnosis gives us, that light, that potential. So recapturing. And we talked about last time who we are and why we are, and that we are this crossing point of matter and spirit. So again, all that it took, all the matter you had to deal with to be here right now, of the clothes and the food and the water and the tea and the coffee and, the place to be and the computer or phone or tablet to have, and all that matter that it took to be here is the existence that we are in. This is creation. This is life in creation. This is a time of our universe of the unfolding of creation. We're in a cosmic day, a Mahan Manvantara. We're in a time of activity of creation. So we have a life to live and to take responsibility for, but not just physically, but interiorly, psychologically, and spiritually. And so we are always this crossing point, know it or not, believe it or not, care or not, we are always at this crossing point of spirit and matter. And that is not only like who and why we are, but it's also where we are. We're always here. And so part of really being present is to also recognize we are this crossing point of a material existence, a material life that we want to have overlaid with that vertical line of spirit or being. We want spirit and being to really inform and lead that physical life. And when we do, then we're connected with reality. We're connected with what we really are. And then we allow those natural higher principles and ideas, emotions that really are informed from above to elevate our life, to elevate our state of being, to allow us to be present in a way that is edifying for ourselves psychologically, in terms of soul development, and to be able to offer that as well to others. And when we forget, when we lose presence and we take on that counterfeit nature that Lao Tzu was talking about, then the line of life tends to lower down. Our mood state, our state of mind, our perception, our sense of so-called reality then declines. It goes down. And so, I mean, if nothing else, even to just live a joyful life, to be free, to be happy, to be truly helpful, to not become a problem to our loved ones so much, just psychologically, we want to do this work. I mean, even on a very basic level, we want to do this work. And this is where we always find ourselves. So that's part of the answer to the question of where are we? And to remember, like we talked about last time, where we are placed is as a as a point, but also a bridge between spirit and matter. And we as humans, I mean, I'm not giving a class to puppies and cats and birds, really. We as humans,
take that as a compliment.
we as humans are in a special place, we could say. We are special creatures with all three brains, including the intellectual brain and the emotional brain and the brain of action, which is instinct, movement, and sexuality combined. That how we are made with those three brains and those five centers I just named, and the chakras that are related with them, all that we are, how we are created, puts us in a special position to actually be a bridge, or maybe better said, a conduit of spirit into matter. And so that is where we find ourselves, at this crossing point of spirit and matter. But in that, we ourselves as human beings are like a portal, potentially either open and functioning, or closed and not functioning portal for spiritual values, spiritual energy, superior dimension, higher dimensional forces to actually enter into matter. And that's what magic is really about. To be a magician, a magi, is synonymous with being a priest or a priestess. And so that's truly what magic is meant to be. Now, unfortunately, sometimes people are using magic to manifest their own self-will and selfish desires. And they're manifesting not from superior dimensions into matter, but they're manifesting inferior dimensions, or the abyss, the forces and principles of the abyss, into matter. And that's our potential too, as humans. And that's why in the Gnostic teachings, it's so emphasized, this gradual progression that begins with Gnostic psychology, begins with meditation, begins with contacting ourselves as an essence, because in our essence is our conscience that knows what positive magic is and knows what negative magic is and doesn't want to do negative magic. So when we take this starting point that we started this talk with, then we're going to be all right. But when we don't start there, and rather we start our studies and our pursuits of esotericism, of psychology, from the self, from the myself, from that counterfeit nature that we have taken on, and there's not a work to investigate that counterfeit nature, then we don't have the conscience activated. And then if we're then like learning acts of magic and mantras and all these things that are very powerful to be vibrating through the human being, this conduit of energies from above or from below into matter. We are that portal, that conduit. Well, then we can create a lot of destruction for ourselves and others, maybe or maybe not really knowing what we're doing. So in Gnosis, we're gradual towards those kinds of arts. When we're present, there's no hurry. When we're in the moment, we take ourselves out of time, out of the mind fixed in time that's worried about getting somewhere, accomplishing something. That's not real. That's not real. And so in presencing ourselves, we can relax and just be present. And that's how we can keep returning to the same public theme over and over again and not tire of it, because every time is different. I've never said what I'm saying right now in exactly the same way, ever. But I've talked about what I'm talking about right now hundreds of times, because it's alive. And even if I had said it exactly the same way and you had heard it exactly the same way, it wouldn't be the same. Because we are different, especially when we're doing this work. We are truly evolving as a consciousness. So we're combining, what we've talked about before in terms of who we are and why we are, kind of what we are, and now where we are. And so most of you are familiar that, and I've already mentioned that we have these three brains, the intellectual, the emotional, the brain of action. That also includes these centers, the 5 centers of the intellectual center and the emotional center and the instinctive, sexual, and motor centers. But also we have these 2 superior centers, the superior intellect, the mind that does not think, the mind that receives from above, situated here at the crown chakra. You can see that how it's depicted here is like just above the head of the human, that superior mind that is able to receive a superior food and the superior emotion related directly with the heart. So we have these 3 brains, these 7 centers, we have 3 nervous systems, we have 7 primary chakras that are related with their 7 endocrine gland systems. So we are constructed through this law of 3 that creates and the law of 7 that organizes. Very organized and mirroring all of creation, the law of 3 and 7 that repeats itself, along with the law of 12 that crystallizes and further organizes. So we have the 12, well, I won't go into that, but we are a meeting of heaven and earth. And tangents are easy. Tangents are easy. We're a meeting of heaven and earth, and it's really up to each of us to live in balance and to live, we could say, principles of our conscience, which again are naturally coming to us when we're in touch with ourselves as an essence, but to live our conscience in our mind, in our emotions, in our actions, and to let our conscience or our available present essence with her faculty of consciousness, which is the faculty of perception of the essence, to receive impressions, be the one to be thinking about or pondering or considering or feeling about what we receive through the senses, and to express in return, to let the essence and eventually the soul and the spirit be who we are and where we are in our lives, to bring heaven on earth. That prayer, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, is not something too passive. It's something that we activate. It's something active for us. Jesus, when he gave this prayer, knew what we are. knows what we are and what we're here to do. And that prayer is exact. The whole Lord's Prayer is exact, is an exact teaching. So as mentioned, we have this beautiful system of chakras as well that relate with these centers, that relate and line up exactly with these centers as well. And so we sometimes, we'll give a public course on the chakras, and then later on, beyond public courses, we continue to unfold, not in a way that's really going after like developing the powers, because certainly there are faculties related with like the Ajna chakra and clairvoyance. I mean, the anahata and intuition is something we do really seek to constantly cultivate. But there's, the clairaudience of the Vishuddha, for instance. So there certainly are faculties that naturally are going to become unclouded, become purified, so that they are able to function again, that are a natural consequence of awakening and working in this work and connecting with the essence. But that's not so much what our focus is with the chakras. There's a psychological work with each of them that is an important work to do. And when we're engaging in that work, we're purifying those centers, we're purifying those chakras, so that their senses, like the sense of clairvoyance, the sense of clairaudience, the sense of intuition, naturally begin to wake up. So we don't have to focus on get the power. We need to focus on, eliminate what is clouding that sense from functioning well. So constantly projecting with my own mind and memories clouds my clairvoyance, clouds your clairvoyance. Clean that up if you're interested in seeing clearly. Always having the last word and thinking about what I'm going to say instead of listening clouds my sense of clairaudience of my Vishuddha chakra. Start listening more purely, being present, not worrying about what you look like so much. Clear the vanity out of your Vishuddha chakra, and your clairaudience will start to be more perceptible to you. Yeah, so it's not about the faculties. It's about being present, which again, this whole meeting is about that. So who are we? We could say a spark of divinity or essence, seeking to know itself through creation, through life. We are an essence who has lost consciousness of why we're truly here, resulting in that false identity, that counterfeit nature that Lao Tzu talked about, and why we are here: to embody divinity on earth, to realize spirit in matter, and to awaken our divine nature. That's fundamentally why we're here. And of what are we? Essence, 3 brains, 7 centers, the chakras, and so on. And so now we want to talk more about, okay, where are we? Where are we in all of this? And again, we are the crossing point of those 2 lines of life. And we can notice where we are in terms of our level of consciousness or level of being, we could say, in any moment, by just paying attention to what's the quality of thoughts and feelings that I'm having. What's the quality of my energy right now? And so we're in a lower, where we are as a consciousness has sunk into lower states. When we're feeling those negative emotions of skepticism and doubts and loss of faith and fear, when we're just caught up in fear and lustfulness and apathy, I don't care, when we're having those kind of thoughts and feelings. And it's not that we should be ashamed or deny that we do have these feelings, because we're a work in progress. And so if we're not willing to be a work in progress and recognize our imperfections, and that we are going to have these kinds of thoughts and feelings, then we can't really elevate from them. So it's not that we should run from them, deny them, ignore them, pretend they're not happening, repress them, whip ourselves because we're bad for having them. None of that. But we can just notice and observe, oh, wow, yeah. I'm really having, my mind is throwing out a lot of skepticism, a lot of doubt, a lot of fear is driving that. And know where we are. You need to know where you are. So knowing where we are when we're in a doubtful, skeptical, fearful state is to acknowledge it and admit it to ourselves that that is where we are. Only then can I possibly work to elevate that state, when I acknowledge this is the state I'm in. And then we have different practices, right? So in those moments we know, maybe I need to, I'm very caught up in my head with the skepticism. I need to change centers. I need to play some beautiful music and start cooking dinner and start using my hands in a way that's creative. I need to go play music. That's what Jeffrey does often. He'll just go play guitar, to change centers, to elevate the state.
Walk out in the yard.
Walk outside. Yeah. Go take a walk, take some deep breaths. So knowing where we are, and if we find ourselves in a lower state, say, kind of like if suddenly you woke up and realized I'm in a dark alley and I'm uncomfortable with where I am. This is not really a great place to be. I'm going to make an effort to walk out of there. But it's not, you're in the middle of the dark alley saying, I'm not in a dark alley. I never go into dark alleys. I refuse to acknowledge that I'm in a dark alley. Bad for being in a dark alley. Like how useful would that be?
Call an Uber and get out of there.
That's right. So we have to recognize where we are and then take the actions we need to take to step out of that dark alley. And sometimes little by little, sometimes it's easy. We just turn on our favorite music and we recognize and we're out. Sometimes it's harder than that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the alley is a great example, because if we weren't conscious, we didn't realize how far we're going into something. And then all of a sudden when we realize it, like,
we're way down there.
We're way down there.
Mm-hmm.
We gotta
mm-hmm.
walk back
mm-hmm.
or try to remember, how did I get here?
Yeah.
But we could always spiritually, consciously call an Uber.
That's right. Say a prayer.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And holding good company helps, good company as in, people who have access to higher states and don't dwell too much in those lower states, because negative emotions are very contagious.
And it's funny because often we in our life have difficult situations. So we surround ourselves with people that have similar difficult situations, and we think we're processing, but we get together and just kind of complain.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very contagious. Yeah. So also when talking about where we are, though at first it might seem complicated, it can be helpful to leverage the tree of life of the Hebraic Kabbalah to help us to reflect upon where we are in relation with who and what we are, that we have a multidimensional existence in all moments. We are multidimensional beings. All of creation is multidimensional because we firstly come from superior dimensions. That we could say heaven is the superior dimensions. God, devas, angels truly do dwell in superior dimensions. And sometimes they're able to manifest and choose to manifest in the physical dimension so that we can see them, we can communicate with them. But more often, they rather have the patience and the wisdom to wait for a human being to be able to elevate him or herself to a superior dimension, so that, because when we're able to do that, then that angel, that deva, that aspect of God knows that we are ready to communicate with them. if they just, because people ask, the skeptical mind is like, why doesn't God just show up? Why don't angels just, if aliens, angels, if all this is real, why don't they just show up? I just want them to come knock on my door, prove it to me. But the one who's talking like that, a person who thinks like that, is in no way ready to have contact with an angel or an alien. And they know that. So out of mercy, out of grace, and out of intelligence, they don't do that. It's on us to elevate to them. It's on us to elevate to them. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, they're, through mercy as well, they do step into that dark alley, and help us out.
It's like, sometimes don't you see the fly banging against the window and you're thinking, I'm not gonna I don't think he's gonna work through this. I'm gonna help him. I'm gonna try to help him get through that window.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But
yes.
then that's it. Just a little bit of help.
Mm-hmm. So firstly, we are from those superior dimension, those superior planes. And that's how creation unfolds. And we study this in great detail, like in the first chamber, what we call first chamber, or invitation level study and practice groups. We go into like Gnostic cosmology and where do we come from and how does this happen? And we get into that. So we're not really going to get into all that, but just to say, we are seven dimensional beings. We are 7-dimensional. And then there's also the lower dimensions below that. Like we said, when we're in the dark alley, psychologically speaking, we're dwelling in those lower dimensions. So there's those lower dimensions too. Now, we'll talk about 4 states of consciousness in a moment in terms of where we are. But really, if you look up the center of this tree that is the human being and is the universe at the same time. So this map is how a universe and how a human likewise is created and unfolds, because we are a microcosm of that macrocosm. In no way is any of this random. It's very, very organized. And you can see this central column, like what we see here in what is, you got to understand, a 2-dimensional glyph of a 7-dimensional reality. So it's hardly accurate, but it gives us a reference. It gives us something. So we just have to ask our minds, like, don't try to fit everything in physically, because the physical 3rd dimension, and certainly the 2nd dimension that this actually is depicted upon, is a very narrow way, a very limited way to see this. And so our mind tends to be very 3rd dimensionally fixed. Length, width, height. If it's not that, it's too abstract. It's hard to understand what to do with it. And so things don't exactly fit in a physical way. So for instance, like, the spirit is not the left shoulder of a person. It's not how we should be seeing this at all. Really, all of these aspects are simultaneously intermingling, from the physical at the base to the vital energy related with the sexual energy, the creative energy, the emotional and mental aspects of ourselves, the will, the consciousness, the spirit. There's a hidden sephira referred to as da'at in the Hebraic language, which is synonymous with gnosis, which means knowledge. And then we have that upper trinity of wisdom, love, and power that are very abstract, that also in different religions are symbolized as that trinity: wisdom, the Father; love, the Son; power, the Holy Spirit; Isis, Horus, Osiris; Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. So the different traditions have, they have divine beings or symbols for that abstract upper creative trinity from which we emanate. The rest is a little more understandable to us. It starts to get a little more concrete when we're talking about, okay, the spirit, the being, this entity, my Father in heaven, that's like my inner dad, and then the consciousness, this faculty that I have. So when I'm paying attention, when I'm presencing myself, like we all are, who's doing that? What in me is doing that? What is behind that yearning to be present? The consciousness. Okay, I can kind of touch that, get my internal hands on that. Willpower, volition, which interestingly is in the center, is in the heart. Yeah, I know what willpower is. I know what it isn't. I know when I don't have it, and I know when I do. And then, oh yeah, the mental aspect of what I am, like, okay, thinking, contemplating, pondering, wondering, and the emotional aspect, and then that vital, energetic aspect, and physically. So the lower parts of the tree we can grasp pretty well, and all of these simultaneously intermingle. What's interesting, even though, like I said, the consciousness is not the right shoulder of a person, but the middle part of the tree actually kind of lines up. We've got physicality, right? Which the lower part of the body is the more, if you really want to get like physically grounded, if you've ever practiced like Qigong or arts like that, or martial arts, that the dantian and the lower part of the belly is where you ground yourself. And when you center there, you're very strong, you're very physically rooted and stable. So that lower part of the body is very physical, related with the Muladhara, the base chakra. And then that vital aspect of ourself here situated, if this is a person, related with the sexual organs and the sexual energy. That vital energy is fundamentally what we are distilled down to. And upon conception, it was two sexual aspects from a man and a woman that came together to begin what we are physically. So that vital kind of lines up. And then interestingly, the will in the center, in the heart. And what that's indicating to us is that, it really gets worked out in the heart. What I will to be, what I will and won't do, what I choose is a matter of what's in my heart. Because if we've ever noticed, it's like we pretty much do what we really want, what we really feel. We tend to do what we feel, and we tend to not do what we do not feel. And this is where the aspect of awakening the superior emotional center in the heart, so that our will is infused with the will of superior emotion. That is critical for the work. That is the juice, the fuel, the solar energy needed to generate this work, is the faculty of the heart. We have to awaken and nourish the superior emotion in the heart, fundamentally. And so then it goes up through that knowledge, which is the key of knowledge, the key of Gnosis, is what connects us with the entire tree. And then wisdom, which is its superior intellect, wisdom. So the superior intellect, the superior emotion, the vital energy, and what we do physically, here we are. And when those are lined up, when those are connected, and we're working it out in the heart, what we will do, what we will not do, that central column shows us, the fundamental line of the work of Gnosis. It's amazing what's in this tree of life. And it tells us also where we are. We are interdimensional. We are in all of these dimensions at once. And we want to become aware of that, and where we are in our will, where we are in our heart. We have to understand that. So where we are, this question of where are we, is also relevant to states of consciousness. Where are we right now? So again, we started this whole talk with this inspiration to be present, to be where we are, to be the essence, being here, listening. And it's helpful to understand, as the Gnostic Master Samael has taught, that there are 4 fundamental states of consciousness to be aware of, because we want to know where we are in these states of consciousness. There's objective consciousness, which relates with the upper parts of the tree, those more abstract aspects. And for one who can elevate to that level, and some who can even dwell in that level, who have liberated themselves from lower states to the point of having objective consciousness, well, those are the supreme Buddhas. Those are the great masters. Those are ones who really become an amazing conduit directly from those higher realms into spirit and matter. They're the ones that we count on. They're the ones that we learn from. They're the ones that we read. They're the ones writing the scriptures. And that's our potential. It's all of our potential. There's also the awake and free and directed consciousness. Awake, free, and directed. We included all three of those words on purpose because the consciousness needs to be awake. So not asleep in my worries and my thoughts and my memories. Oh, I got to do this, I got to do that, worried about what people think of me, asleep in that vanity or self-consideration, asleep in selfish desires. What can I get out of this situation? All of that splinters and takes our energy of consciousness into all these other things other than being awake and present and free, to be free in that, to be unencumbered by lust and greed and anger and irritability and memories and desires and all of that. So free and directed by the consciousness, put to purpose. Because if it's just awake and free, guess what's going to happen? If we're not directing it, it's going to be taken by something else. Somebody's going to direct that stuff. And if it's not our consciousness, it's going to be our ego. And then, of course, there's subjective and conditioned consciousness. And that's the state that most people in waking lives find themselves in, is subjective, personalized, very relative to myself, my perspective, my memories, my experiences, my desires. It's that counterfeit nature, conditioning, I liked what they said, therefore they're a good person. I didn't like what they said, so they're bad. Just to break it down, be super simplistic about it, but that's kind of how we operate when we're in this subjective, conditioned state of consciousness. And that's where generally our politics are. That's generally where our education institutions rest. That's generally where all the systems that are running society are existing, because they're made up of people that are in subjective states of consciousness. And that's where most of us find ourselves most of the time. And then there's unconsciousness, subconsciousness, and infraconsciousness. So when we're in a really lower state of consciousness. So it's important to know where we are within these 4 states of consciousness and to really work to rise up from this subjective state of consciousness, so I come down here, into that higher state of consciousness. Sorry about that. So that we really work to be in our awake, free, and directed consciousness. That is the state of consciousness from which the work of awakening and really realizing what we are in a consistent way is possible, only with the awake, free, and directed consciousness. So again, we are this tree of life with its tremendous capacities to which we've fallen asleep, mostly. We are this tree of life. And we all have this choice point in every moment and in every life. We have a choice to make in this moment and with our life to be or not to be. To be connected to the essence, connected to this vertical line of the being, or to merely exist, forgetting that this line is there, or to merely have a material existence. And that's what most of so-called modern life is focused on. Just exist, just fall asleep in existence, buy more stuff, consume more. It'll at least give you temporal happiness until you grab the next thing. You'll be all right, say the advertisements. Stick with us. And you don't need this, but I think we all know, or we wouldn't be here. That's not authentic. It's not joyful. It's not lasting for us. So to be or not to be is the question of this moment right now. To be present, to just be, to not need to be more than that. And with this life. And again, the heart is the place of reconciling that. So that central you is really the place of the heart. And in our way of working in and transmitting Gnosis, we focus a lot on the cultivation of the faculties of the heart, being the essence and working in the heart, because this is where it gets worked out, to be or not to be. You do what you feel. You do what you yearn. And if your yearning is caught in your selfishness, then that is what you will do, and that is how you will live. And if your yearning is in touch with the yearning of your being, then that is what you will do, and that is how you will live. And that will elevate your whole life, your whole state of being. It really does get worked out in the heart. And Master Samael talks about this battle of heart against heart as, like, he calls it in this, in the way he does, this terrible battle, this heart against heart that we all struggle with. Desire, altruism, selfishness, sacrifice, lust for matter, longing for spirit. I mean, that's the stuff of being here. It's the stuff of being human. That's what we're all working out. We're all working that out. And it gets worked out in the heart. So if your spirit is impulsing that you to awaken your consciousness and do this work, then you already have what you need. Because it's a matter of, is the being impulsing us? Because we notice in our lives, like, you come here and maybe sometimes you try to share this with other people, you invite other people, and you notice sometimes people that we really might love or like, or think, wow, they're such a great person, and they are totally disinterested in these things. And we wonder why. It's such a mystery. Why isn't the being impulsing them? Why aren't they not interested? They just don't feel it. And that is a mystery. We don't get to know why. But if you're here, what you know is that your being is impulsing you to do this work. And therefore you have the force that you need. You have what you need, whatever your life looks like, however much, you have going on, whatever your circumstances, if you have that impulse in your heart, you have everything you need to engage in the path. Absolutely. Without that ambition, if it has to look a certain way, or comparing ourselves to others, or trying to follow in somebody's exact footsteps, we take them as inspirations and examples, and we have our own heart to be or not to be, to work out for ourselves. And so that is where we are. If you are here, you are in that position of being impulsed by your being to do an inner work, to awaken, and to get in touch with that being who's impulsing you. Your being is knocking and wants you to answer. And we answer moment to moment. There's a yes, and there's a definition in general that we can make, but even with that, even like us being teachers, we still have to answer moment to moment. It's a moment to moment choice and work and working out. And we do it with that awake, free, and directed consciousness in a context. It's a context we need to work it out. As a mentor, we would say a Gnostic master and a teacher of ours, Rafael Vargas, says that if one pays attention to the body of the Gnostic doctrine, one discovers that everything revolves around the practical idea of awakening the consciousness. That's what we're always talking about. Whatever we're talking about, that's what we're talking about. Always. And so it only makes sense to be in a talk, in a practice, and doing that at the same time. So we're going to take a few minutes to stretch. Let's take 5 minutes, so 37 on our clock, to come back, and we'll practice with the rest of the time, and then we'll have time for questions for anybody who wants to stick around. All right, welcome back. And so everyone, find your place, your posture for practice for 20 minutes of meditation. And where we hope to find ourselves in practice and posture is in a position where the body is both alert and able to stay awake, and yet able to be very relaxed. We want to let go of as much physical tension as possible. And then we're less fixed to the body and all of its sensations, desires, and distractions. So let yourself, find a place where you can really relax. And a posture, whether you're lying down, you're seated, you're kneeling, you're on a cushion, you're on a chair. Sometimes we meditate standing if we're really, really tired. Sometimes we use the middle of the night to practice, and for periods of times we stand. And so there's no one posture, but as long as we can be alert and also very relaxed. And it's up to you if you want to have your eyes closed, or if when you close your eyes, you really it's too hard to stay present, and you go off too many places, or your imagination goes like distracting, then you can just have your eyes very lightly opened and gazing at a non-distracting spot before you. Either way is fine. And then we want to connect with our breathing. And first, just notice how you're breathing. Shallowly, deeply, smoothly. Notice your breath and invite each inhale to just go a little deeper down towards your belly, and feel that gentle expansion of your belly as you inhale. And then allow each exhale to be complete with just a very gentle contraction of your abdominal muscles, so that all of the air gets out and that breath becomes completed. And then again, slowly draw another inhale down towards your belly. Let there be a gentle pause at the end of that inhale, being full for a moment, and then slowly exhale, a long, smooth, complete exhale to the end. And pause and let yourself be totally empty of breath for just a moment before you slowly inhale again. And find your own pace of this, so that we're not grasping for the next inhale. We're not pushing out the exhale. You're just finding your rhythm of even, long, slow, and complete inhales and exhales. Meanwhile, let your face relax, your shoulders relax, the core and trunk of your body relax, the muscles, even the bones. Relax the hips, the legs, the feet, the arms. relaxed body, and long, smooth inhales and exhales. If you can, breathe through your nose. It helps to regulate your breathing and brings a calm and relaxation and also energy to the nervous system, to the body, to the brain. And if you're unable to breathe through your nose, you can breathe through pursed lips, like through a large straw. That also helps to slow it down and regulate your breathing. Now, for a few rounds, let's add counting just to help our mind to stay very present, to help ourselves to be in this moment. So at the end of each exhale, just place a number, 1 to 5, counting 1 to 5 at the end of each exhale. If you lose count, you just begin again at 1, no problem. Still with these long, complete inhales and exhales with that little pause in between. Letting the face and the body be completely relaxed. Continuing our practice of being present, just being where we are, letting go of the rest. And now breathe as though your lungs are your heart. As if you are breathing and filling your heart with each inhale. And instead of just feeling your belly expand, feel your heart expand now. You have a heart condition. This might be uncomfortable or difficult, so take it in your own way. You know, go easy on yourself. If it feels really uncomfortable, then you can continue breathing as before. But we want to focus on being very connected with the heart and sending this life force of each breath, this prana, into the heart. Still with a relaxed face, relaxed body surrounding that heart. This heart that is related with our conscience, our intuition, our capacity to give and receive love. Our capacity to sacrifice selfish desire, to give more than we are interested to take. This heart that relates with inner knowing. This heart that is called the seat of the soul. This heart that feels compassion, empathy with action, empathy with wisdom. This heart that knows, that has cardias gnosis, that knowing of the heart. And this heart where we work out the work, the path, and our relationship with our being. This heart that is the true laboratory and workshop of our whole life. And this heart that is in a line of connection with our creative energy, the essence of what we are energetically, and the wisdom of Keter, the father of our father. This heart that integrates spirit and matter. Let us breathe life into that heart and breathe connection into that heart. We want to be in our heart and know from our hearts. And there's a mantra that we can use in this science of sound that mantra is. Mantra from manas, mind, and Tra'i to protect. And this mantra connects us with the heart and also with our innermost being. It is a song from the heart to the being to make a connection to our own spirit, that we're calling into our matter. This mantra, omnis yaom intimo. Intimo, the intimate, the being, the spirit. Omnis, like omnipresent, omnis, all. Yaom connects the two. So we'll sing this mantra just a few times. And you can sing with us or just take it silently and be in your heart with this longing, at least a curiosity, to be in touch with this innermost spirit, this innermost being, this innermost wisdom. And to reach out from your heart to your own spirit, calling it into you as matter, your life. Omnis jaum intimo. And remain breathing into your heart in silence for a few more moments. Breathing into your true will and your yearning, your reaching for that contact with your own spirit. And now with your next couple of inhalations, become aware of your whole body. Aware, even with the eyes closed, of the environment, the sounds around you. Just become aware again of yourself sitting or kneeling or lying down as you are, where you are, and aware of being together in a group. And make note of what you have felt, maybe what you have seen from this practice. And let that remain in your heart and inspire you either to practice more, or maybe to go read, maybe to take a walk. Maybe it inspires the way that you interact for the rest of the day, in the days to come. And hopefully, all of us going forward with this awareness of where we are as this crossing point of spirit and matter, and where we are in our own hearts, where we are in our consciousness, and to keep reaching out to that spirit that is impulsing us to feel our own presence in the moment, but to also feel the presence of that spirit in us in the moment. To let that lead our way of thinking, our way of feeling, our way of being. So taking in a nice big inhalation and letting it out through the mouth, we can come out of this practice